Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Reengineering the Chess Classic series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and this series of videos is inspired by the book I recently wrote with my childhood coach Steve Giddins called Reengineering the Chess Classics. And in that book we apply all of the interesting, innovative engine analysis techniques that I described in the Si8licon Road to Chess Improvement. We apply it to plenty of classic games, some very well known, others less well known, and use the engines to discover new plans, new strategies, tactical ideas, everything really. I mean, I think it's a really lovely book actually, and certainly I learned a huge amount about those classic games. You know, partly some appreciation for the play that the great players had done, but also, you know, understanding how rich chess is, and even in these well-known games, how many new and exciting things there are to discover. And this series of videos that I'm doing also gives me a chance to share, the obsession that I've got at the moment for a few of those classic players. And we're starting with one player called Dawid Markelowicz Janowski. Born in Poland, known as a French player, spent a great deal of his life there, also died there in 1927 in Hyères. Unfortunately for Janowski, he's best known really for a couple of crushing disappointments, and those were very, very poor match results against the great Emanuel Lasker. When I was growing up, I learned that those matches were for the actual World Championship title. It seems that historians nowadays feel that they weren't actually there, but obviously it was an important match. And I think that you can say that Janowski was never quite the same afterwards, after losing those matches to Lasker. But just to focus on those, on the games that he lost against Lasker is really doing him a severe injustice, because he really was a quite amazing player. Very, very talented tactician, attacking player, plenty of very interesting opening ideas in his games. And hope with this series of videos I'm going to share that enthusiasm with you. We're actually going to start off with a game that Janowski won against Lasker from their second match that they played. They played a short 4-game match, and then afterwards a longer match. And this was a very, very nice game from Janowski, and also quite important for the opening theory of that time. So let's have a little look how this all came out, and we're going to see how Janowski and Lasker played. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop b5, and now d6. And through this 4 knights move order, we've transposed into the Steinitz basically, which is characterized by, in the Lopez, playing these moves d6 and then bishop e7. Super solid. I mean, when you look at the games of players of that era, for example, Tarash or whatever, you can see how much time and energy, the white players of that time dedicated to the Steinitz. It just makes you think a little bit, if somebody like Louis Paulsen, who played all sorts of stuff like the Sicilian and stuff like that, if he'd been world champion, what would that have meant for the development of chess theory at that time? But of course, because Steinitz had his solid cramped systems, that's what white players spent a lot of time on. So d4 played, and now bishop d7. The engines in general really want black to take on d4 and then play bishop d7. Always a little bit afraid that the white will play a move like d5, for example. Just blocking up the center, sort of inconveniencing the black pieces, and just getting a fairly solid space advantage. What the engines also look at actually is to take on c6 in this way. It seems a little bit strange to take it without being prompted, but the idea is to play queen e2. I mean, we've got the pressure on this pawn, and what you'll notice is that white hasn't actually castled queenside yet. So after bishop e7, we can do something like, for example, bishop f4, knight d7 castles, and then g4. And I mean, this is pretty dangerous for black to face. I mean, black doesn't have much space all on the back 3 ranks like that, and white's gaining a lot of space on the king side. So yeah, I mean, this is one major plan that the engines wanted. But yeah, Janowski played very sensible moves. Castles, bishop e7, and now rook e1. Again, the engine's quite interested in playing d5 here. But rook e1, and now e takes d4 from Lasker. Knight takes d4 and castles. And this is the first very interesting point in the game. Here Janowski plays a move that I think was very much inspired by Tarash, although in Die moderne Schachpartei, I don't think my German accent is very good there, then Tarash actually criticises this move and recommends the move that he eventually came up with after his own match against Lasker. He preferred bishop f1, just removing the bishop, avoiding the exchange of pieces, trying to to keep black's pieces passive on the third rank in this way. But Janowski played the move knight de2, and that's not a particularly intuitive move, but to understand it we actually have to go back to the theory of that time, and that theory was heavily driven by Siegbert Tarash. And back in 1890, during a game against the great English player Joseph Blackburn, Tarash came up with the idea of, against the Steinitz, of fianchettoing the dark squared bishop and developing an attack against the g7 square. And this involved transferring a knight round to the f5 square, not normally directly via d4 to f5, but normally through a roundabout route, knight e2 to g3 to f5. And that combination of bishop on the long diagonal, knight on f5 was extremely powerful. Could also be reinforced by, for example, a rook coming along on the third rank. Tarash won many games like that, and in actual fact he reached this position against Emanuel Lasker in his own World Championship match of 1908. And in this position Tarash played this idea, which was very interesting. So knight c6, bishop c6, takes, and now this move knight e2. And what's the idea of knight e2? Well, first of all, the e-pawn isn't hanging because we go knight d4, and we've got, we're attacking the pawn in e4. We've also got the threat of knight takes c6. Basically, white's just winning a piece there. So Lasker played queen d7. Knight came round to g3. You can see this template, the knight coming into f5. Rook e8 and b3, rook d8, bishop b2. And well, actually Lasker's moves, queen d7, rook e8, rook d8, a little bit slow. And here actually the engine's really thinking that that white has a fairly clear advantage. Not easy for black to move these pieces at all and get his position sorted out. Yeah, these moves haven't really helped at all either. And this position, Lasker, well, did he blunder? I certainly think he did, to be honest. I'm not accepting any explanations about it being a brilliancy, because he played knight g4, very natural move to try and play the bishop to f6 to neutralize this piece. And here Tarash uncorked bishop takes g7, with of course the point king g7, knight f5. And well, after knight takes f2, king f2, king g7, knight f5, queen d4, f6. I mean, Tarash had an absolutely wonderful position, but unfortunately, yeah, he got confused, he got nervous. He wasn't, practical play. He was a very, very, very strong player, but he was capable of getting nervous, and he got short of time, got nervous, and Lasker actually just outplayed him from this position. It's one of the most famous Lasker victories from an inferior position. But yeah, I mean, definitely Tarash won the opening battle there. Janowski's idea, knight de2, is really just taking that an extra step. I mean, you're not exchanging off pieces, so you're keeping black's pieces tied up, but this knight simply is coming round to g3, and then afterwards we'll play b3, bishop b2. It's a very, very interesting idea, and actually Lasker had a huge amount of difficulty in dealing with this idea. There was this game which he lost. There was also a game in their first match which Lasker won, but Janowski played brilliantly up to a point and had a clear advantage. We'll have a little look at that one as well. And finally, there was a later game in this same match where Lasker played something that looked rather weird, I have to say, but that turns out to be one of Stockfish's preferred ways of playing. So yeah, that home analysis of Lasker's was definitely pretty good. So what does Black play in this position? Well, in our main game, Lasker played the move knight e5, which is reasonable. The engines played a6, bishop d3, and this was also what Lasker played twice. And now Lasker did a couple of things. I mean, he went rook e8. This was in the first game, first match that they played, 4 games, which was a 2-all draw. Knight g3 and bishop f8, and I think, you know, if you notice the way that the Black players of that time played, you know, even the really good players like Lasker and Capablanca, I mean the real super strength players, they tended just to regroup their pieces on the third rank and behind the third ranks, and this really gave aggressive players like Janowski and Tarash, very dynamic players, quite a lot of chances. And if you look at how Janowski played this game against Lasker, it went really, really well. So bishop g5, very typical actually that White delays the development of this dark square bishop until Black's played bishop f8, and then you pin him with bishop g5. h6, bishop e3. Yeah, the bishop has been chased away, but now White's going to gain a tempo on the h6 pawn. This is all, very, very typical strategy, modern strategy. I mean, you see it in the King's Indian an awful lot, all this sort of stuff. And this was all 1909 really, so pretty impressive. Bishop g7, and actually after this the advantages really start getting serious according to the engines. The engines really do not like bishop g7 at all, and we'll discuss why a little bit later. So queen d2, king h7, and now rook d1, b5 and f4. The engines have various suggestions left and right, but essentially what's always clear is that White's got a fairly nice advantage here. Black's finding it very hard to get the pieces active. Well, actually Lasker sort of ran out of ideas really, and just started playing around, making some rather strange moves. And here Janowski found a very nice idea. Played the move e5 takes and then f5, and this is again very well known in the modern Benoni. This sacrifice e5, you force Black to block the center, get the bishop passive behind the e5 pawn, and then hit f5 at a weakened king side. And here it's particularly effective because the king's on h7. And after knight e7 takes, well, this got rather interesting in actual fact. The point is, normally you're doing this for a huge kingside attack, but actually in some ways Janowski's a little bit unlucky, because that's not what you're getting from this position. What you're simply getting is a gorgeous square on e4 for the knight, and just lots of weaknesses in the Black position, weak pawn, poorly placed pieces. And actually what White should be trying to do here, White should be trying to just clear away some of the defenders of Black squares and then just invading. And for example, what the engines all wanted to do was to play knight h5 here, rook f8, queen h4, and we're getting lots of exchanges here. But here we're taking on g7. Now it means that this pawn on e5 is no longer well defended. All these pieces still very passive indeed. And now knight d5. Bishop e6 for example, knight e7, just swapping off pieces, swapping off defenders. Queen h8 to defend this pawn on here, and then bishop d4. This was a game, Stockfish Dragon, and takes, king h7, queen e4, queen g8, rook takes d4, and basically, White has had really no sniff of a kingside attack, but essentially he's just cleared away all the Black pieces that might have become active, and just ended up with in a symmetrical pawn structure, but ended up with really active White major pieces against passive Black major pieces. And for the engines, this is just a completely clear win. But it's not obvious to me at all. I can see a good advantage, but this way of playing would also not be obvious at all. So yeah, you know, from that point of view, it's always the same. Lasker defended so well by always somehow managing to give his opponent problems. But what Janowski did was not bad at all. He went knight e4, rook f8, queen e2, and now knight f5 was played by Lasker. And here, actually, we're indebted to a very fine player of that time and a fine analyst as well, Georg Marko, who actually finds the most crucial and the best line for white to play, which the engines, you know, also recommend. But well, he was analysing this in 1909, 1910, and yeah, he analysed it beautifully. So he mentions the move bishop c5, which is already very strong. Janowski took on f5, and Lasker replied with gf. And now Marko does an awful lot of analysis on the move bishop c5, which is also the engine favourite. And this is a really, really strong move. The big problem for black is that obviously, you know, stuff like f takes e4. We've got all of these guys hanging here. So I think we just go. I think we go bishop e4 check in this position, and then I'm going to take on f8, take on a8, and then this one will be hanging. Or bishop d7. I'm just going to go bishop takes f8. And if you go, you know, something like queen f8, I just pin you with rook f1. So there's just loads and loads of unpleasant stuff happening there. And if you go something like rook f7, for example, I just go queen h5, hitting the rook and threatening knight g5 check. If you go rook e8, I go queen h5 again, fe4 takes, and then rook f1. So I'm threatening queen g6 to h7. And if I go rook e6 to stop it, rook f7, and it's going to be absolute carnage. You know, we're yeah, you're threatening a move like queen f5, for example, with queen f7 mate, as well as attacking the bishop on d7. So yeah, I mean, this was really, you know, very powerful play from Janowski, and he just went a little bit wrong here. He got after knight f5, gf5, played knight c5, bishop c6. And yeah, Lasker survived, and as always happens, very similar mentality to Magnus Carlsen. He's been a lot worse for a long time, and yet when he reaches equality, he then goes on to win it, not just agree a draw. And yeah, you know, that's the well, that's the real hallmark of a fantastic practical player. But still, you know, very, very interesting play from Janowski there, and you know, yeah, I mean, he lost that game and still drew the match 2-2. So yeah, you know, shows how impressively he was playing. The really interesting thing is that what Lasker came up with after home analysis was he came up with this plan, knight g4. And I think that, you know, really what Lasker felt was that, well, whatever is going to happen, I'm not going to allow a bishop to be hitting across this long diagonal. That's just caused me so much pain against Tarash and against Janowski. And the idea there with knight g4, so hitting these, you know, slightly sensitive squares here, knight g3, and then this move bishop f6. So we've got our bishop active, and well, we're already threatening stuff like bishop d4 and queen h4. So h3 played, and now bishop takes c3, takes and knight e5. And very, very interesting play. I mean, when I saw it, I sort of thought, oh, you know, is that really any good? But well, you know, if you give knight g4 is not Stockfish's favourite move, but if you give knight g4 to Stockfish, knight g3, then bishop f6 is what it wants, and this whole plan with bishop c3, knight e5, and well, basically black's going to, you know, do stuff like f6 just to cover the king side, and then try and you know, occupy the c4 square, you know, keep those pawns back, keep this bishop a little bit passive, play b5, and well, it's a very complicated strategical game, really. But yeah, you know, I mean, it's very, very interesting. What Janowski did was f4, but then Lasker hit him with queen h4, forcing this knight to retreat. It went back to f1, and then Lasker played takes, takes, and f5, and actually had a very, very good game, and yeah, missed a very good chance to get a clear advantage with black. So this was excellent opening preparation from Lasker there. Sort of at the well, I'm not sure it's only the third attempt, maybe more attempts than that, but finally getting some sort of grip with the system. And certainly, you can see that with this plan, you can see that Lasker definitely understood where the problems were coming from, and thus did everything in his power to stop a bishop becoming powerful on this long diagonal. If you're looking at what do the engines want to do in this position, it's quite interesting as well, because this is something that that basically the human players of that time never did, and the engines just want to play knight e5, knight g3, and then a quick c6. Or rook e8 first and then c6, just with the idea of I'm going to strike out with d5 or strike out with b5, b4 as quickly as possible, generate counterplay. And I think the players of this era were very wary about giving this weakness on d6. But when you're brought up in the King's Indian and all of that, that well, okay, this is a weakness, but we're gonna be playing for d5 and b5 counterplay. You're not going to have time to really line up on that pawn. But it's treating this line in a much more active way than the players of that generation did. So there we are, a bit of a lengthy digression. Hope that wasn't too dull, but yeah, I mean, I'm just having a gorgeous time, looking through the theory of this period and seeing how the players approach these. So, well, knight e5, that was Lasker's choice in his first game of this second match against Janowski, and then knight g3. Bishop takes b5, knight b5, and actually, Janowski's very clever for allowing this exchange on b5, because it's not only this knight on g3 that's aiming for this square. Actually, this knight can come into f5, and you're going to see how crucial that is. So rook e8, and now b3. And here, the engines are saying, please, 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 give me c6 and d5. Let's strike back in the center. And the idea is that if f4, knight g6, e5, black can play knight e4. And well, the key point is that this pawn is not hanging here because black's got c5. And yeah, otherwise, black's got ideas like bishop b4. It's just this whole structure is just a little bit awkward for white somehow. You can't play bishop b2, which you'd like to, because f4 is hanging. So yeah, somehow white's just a little bit doesn't have enough control of his own position really. So this is why this counterplay works. And that's the immediate reaction of all the engines. Striking back, taking some play in the center, and basically claiming equality there. But Lasker, takes a very slow approach, but very typical of that era. And Janowski just gets a lot of time to build up. And well, I think you end up in a very similar situation to Tarash against Lasker. Lasker's got his pieces sort of organised, but yeah, I mean, White's just so strong everywhere that there's not that much to do. So g6 was played. Again, c6 is what the engines want. f4, knight ed7. But you can see how Lasker is resisting ever playing c6. He doesn't want to have a weakness on d6. Queen f3, a6, and knight d4. And well, you can see how beautiful the white position is here. You can also think of lots of strengthening moves for white. I mean, rook d1, c4, clamping down on the center and on the queen side. Actually, this move c4, this was always part of Tarash's plan. He always played this a lot. There's, for example, a game against Karl Schlechter, a very famous game of Tarash's, which he won with this system, where he also played this move c4 as well, sort of Maroczy bind kind of structure. Bishop g7 and rook ad1, and well, here Lasker made a huge mistake, but actually it's already very, very difficult indeed for black. I mean, essentially you're just super restricted here with black, and well, the engine's suggesting queen c8, but then we play c4. And well, I mean, we're just free to build up however we want. Tarash suggested the move knight c5. For some reason, he wasn't really impressed with Janowski's idea of knight de2 early in the opening, and he kept on criticising the play afterwards. But I mean, here e5 is really, really strong for white, so that's not going to help. What Lasker did was play the move queen e7. And well, this gave Janowski the chance to display his his attacking skill, and well, he took that with both hands. I mean, the match had not gone very well for Janowski so far. I think this was the 6th match game, and he was already substantially in arrears. So yeah, very, very impressive. Simply that he was still able, willing, and brave enough just to sacrifice. Just knight f5. So takes, knight takes f5, queen e6. And now, just a surprisingly simple way of playing. Takes, and now e5. And yeah, the point is, this bishop again, pointing towards the black king, and it just means that there are loads and loads of tactics. I mean, we're threatening e takes f6, discovering the attack on the queen on e6. It's something like fe, I just go fe. Where does the knight go? Knight g8. But we've got stuff like rook d7, for example, and e6. Loads and loads of possibilities like that. So, well, Lasker, put up the best defense he could. Queen f5 is possible. That was one of the engine choices. Then we take check, go queen b7. Okay, queen c2 is played here, and then bishop d4, and it's clear that black's in a lot of trouble here, and well, the engines weren't managing to hold this. In a human game, always messy, of course. But what Lasker did, he played the move king f8, and after ef6, you could actually also throw in f5 here first, and then take on f6. That would not be stupid at all. But Janowski took on f6, takes, and went rook e8, and I guess that Lasker was simply trying to unbalance things somehow. There's plenty of ways of playing here. Janowski probably didn't choose the very best, but what he chose was also never in doubt, really, of not winning. The very best move that the engines wanted to play, well, queen h5 is one possibility, just going after the pawns here, and queen g4 is also a move that was being suggested all over the place. But somehow the engine's not completely thrilled about it after rook e6. They actually recommend going back with queen f3, so that's not absolutely great. But queen h5 does seem to be the strongest, and then rook e4, g3. We give our king just a little bit of space to escape round to h3, and after king e8, queen h7, check, we escape there, queen f5, king g4, and well, the h pawn is going to be a runner as well. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with what Janowski did, which was he just took on b7 here, rook e2, check, king f3, rook takes c2, bishop d4, and everything's active. And the queen's causing havoc. We've got lots of loose pawns, and when there are loose pawns, then the queen's always going to be in there taking stuff, forking stuff, that sort of thing. And certainly the engines didn't manage to hold this, and Lasker, fantastic defender, didn't really manage to find anything to confuse his opponent. Queen b5, queen takes a5, just gradually nibbling away at the black position. And black's got all these problems with the back rank. Hard to get the rooks coordinated off the back rank because it's just going to be a check. And of course the king's weak on the king side as well. So knight d3 played, bishop e3, quite a calm little move there from Janowski. D5 played, and then bishop d2. Found this very surprising, this move. c5 and king g3, but really very restrained from Janowski, just getting his king safe, and then afterwards, what is he going to aim to do? He's just going to aim to start expanding again, but just for the moment he's just being very quiet. But Lasker lost his patience there, played the move knight c1, and after bishop takes c1 he resigned, in actual fact, maybe a bit prematurely, but I think he was probably upset at having missed rook takes c1, queen d2, when queen takes d5 is coming in. So for example, rook e1, queen d5, queen g5, and we just start picking up lots and lots of pawns there. So there we are. That was a very interesting game. First look at Dawid Janowski, actually a player who beat all of the world champions, Steinitz, Lasker, Capablanca and Alekhine. So, you know, pretty impressive record, really. And I liked his strategy very much in this game. I thought knight e2 was a very nice refinement of Tarash's idea against the Steinitz. And, yeah, I think the way that he played it was absolutely beautiful. And, you know, very smooth play, just putting the pieces onto good squares there. And then, yeah, when the opportunity came, he just, you know, struck, and this was very smooth and very easy, and well, didn't put it away in the absolute engine prescribed manner, but still, you know, played it very well indeed, and very impressive game there from Janowski. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that. Well, certainly there's going to be quite a few more games from this period, analysed in this way as well. Do take a look at my new book, Reengineering the Chess Classics, if you enjoyed this, because there's loads more of it, and I think, you know, some games that you may know, you know, just from older books, well, I think you'll be amazed, surprised, and delighted, you know, at what we've managed to find together with the engines. And otherwise, you know, thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give a like, give a subscribe, and hope to see you at the next videos. Thanks for watching.